I found out my best friend at work had been sabotaging my promotion for 6 months. The day I discovered it, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled, thanked her for the coffee, and started planning the most professional revenge this company has ever seen. It was Monday, March 4th, 7:58 in the morning, 2 minutes early. Jenna had left her desk to grab breakfast from the kitchen, and I needed a stapler. Hers was the good one, the swing line that never jammed. I pulled open her bottom drawer, and that's when my hand brushed against something heavy. A manila folder, thick, worn at the edges, labeled with a black marker. Maya's strategies. My strategies. The ones I kept locked in my own desk drawer across the room, the same drawer she'd seen me open 100 times. The same drawer I never locked because she was my best friend. I opened the folder, and my stomach went cold. It wasn't just one document. It was everything. 6 months of my work, my client retention plans, my quarterly projections, my proposal drafts for the Caldwell account. Every single one had her sticky notes on it. Too conservative, doesn't understand the client, said she'd deliver this 2 weeks ago. And then I saw the emails. Printouts, 43 of them, all from Jenna's Nexasoft address to our boss, David Thompson. The dates spanned 6 months. The subject lines were variations of the same theme. Follow-up on Maya's performance. Concerns about Maya's progress. Maya missed another deadline? Every email was a small lie. She wrote that I missed the Miller Group deadline. Except I had the time-stamped proof that I submitted it 3 days early. She wrote that our quarterly review reflected poorly on my time management. I knew that report had been perfect. David had told me himself. I sat there in her ergonomic chair, reading about my own failures. It took me maybe a half hour. The kitchen was 2 floors down, and the elevator was slow. I knew I had time, but I was shaking. Jenna had been in my wedding party. We had matching keychains. I brought her soup when she had the flu, and she sat with me in the parking lot that night. My engine died. She knew my Starbucks order by heart, and I knew hers. We were the dynamic duo of client success. Everyone said so. Everyone was wrong. I read the final email, dated February 28th, 5 days before the promotion announcement. It was 1 paragraph, and I remember it word for word. David, I think we both know Maya isn't ready for director. She's struggling with the fundamentals. I want you to consider what's best for Nexasoft, and I think that's me. What's best for Nexasoft? She said fundamentals, and then she undercut me. I closed the folder, put it back exactly where I found it, and straightened the 2 pens on her desk until they aligned with the edge. If you're moved by this story, consider subscribing to Revenger. I promise, this one only gets better. When Jenna came back with her oatmeal and her usual sunshine smile, I was standing at my own desk, calendar in hand. She said, "Good morning, Roomie." And I said, "Morning, Jen," like nothing had changed. Like I hadn't been poisoned by 43 paper cuts. Maya's strategies, she had them. Which meant she had gone through my desk, probably on days when I was in meetings. She'd copied everything, then built a case against me in private. David never asked me a single question. He just believed her. That was the part that burned hottest. I didn't confront her. Not then. Not for a single second, because confrontation protects nothing. It gives them time to delete evidence, to coordinate stories, to make you look unstable. I walked to my own desk, sat down, and opened a new email draft. To Sarah and Wynn. Subject, everything is fine. Sarah was my business analyst, my ride or die in every room full of men who talked over us. She'd be able to pull calendar logs, email metadata, meeting room histories. All the things a court of public opinion needed. I typed a single line. then deleted it and tried to breathe. There it was, in my inbox. Monday, March 4th. Jenna Miller had forwarded me a sign-up sheet for the March potluck, with a heart emoji and a note, "You bring your famous enchiladas." Genuine. Genuinely genuine. A heart emoji from the woman who had spent 6 months quietly telling our boss I was failing. I killed the draft and wrote a new one because starting a paper trail wasn't smart yet. Social temperature read first. I'd watch her for a few days and I'd let her think she'd won. I'd say congratulations. I'd bake a cake for the team. I'd do everything exactly like the Maya she expected me to be. Let her get comfortable. Then I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. There were 43 emails. I had her for 6 months of sabotage. I needed corroboration, the kind you can't delete. I typed a list of dates, calendar entries, meeting titles, screen names. Jenna glanced over from her desk and said, "Big plan for the quarter?" I smiled at her, the same smile I'd practiced at my desk for 7 years. Like that. She had no idea what was coming, and I intended to keep it that way. The first thing I did was go back to my desk and open my email client. Not the folder again. I'd already memorized every page in it. What I needed now was the corroboration. The kind of evidence that couldn't be explained away as a misunderstanding. Sarah came by at 10 o'clock with 2 cups of coffee. She set one on my desk and didn't say a word. Just looked at me. Sarah Nguyen has been a business analyst at Nexasoft for 4 years, and she has a gift for knowing when someone needs a moment before they speak. I told her about the folder. I told her about the 43 emails. I told her about the 6 months of criticism that had been sitting in Jenna's desk drawer, documented and printed and ready to be deployed. Sarah didn't gasp. She didn't say, "I can't believe it." She just nodded slowly and said, "That explains the scheduling conflicts." What scheduling conflicts? You remember when the Miller Group deadline was moved up 3 days? And Jenna said she'd forwarded you the client's email? I remembered. I'd asked Jenna about it twice, and both times she'd said, "Oh, I sent that to you yesterday. Check your spam." I'd checked my spam. It wasn't there. The client actually emailed me directly, Sarah said. They were confused about why you hadn't responded to a message that was never sent to you. I didn't think anything of it then. I wrote that down. Then I asked her to pull the email chain from the client's side. It took her about 4 minutes. She forwarded it to me with a timestamp that matched my memory of the week before the Miller Group submission. The deadline had been tight. I'd made it anyway, 3 days early, thanks to 2 nights of working until midnight at my kitchen table. That was one piece. I needed the others. Over the next 3 days, I became the most organized person at Nexasoft. I saved every email Jenna had ever sent me that felt off. The ones where she'd said she'd handle something and hadn't. The ones where she'd complimented my work to my face, but, according to the folder, criticized it in writing to David. I created a folder on my desktop called Q1 Archive. It sat right next to Q1 Reports, so if anyone glanced at my screen, they'd see nothing unusual. On Wednesday, I found the pattern. It was elegant, which made it worse. Jenna didn't always sabotage me directly. Sometimes she just timed things badly. She'd schedule my client reviews at the same time as my quarterly planning sessions. She'd forget to add me to meetings with important stakeholders. She'd mention my busy schedule to David in a way that made it sound like I was overwhelmed when I wasn't. Each incident on its own was minor. A missed email here, a conflicting meeting there. Together, they painted a picture of a project manager who was struggling. And that picture had been going to David for 6 months. On Thursday afternoon, I found the opportunity I'd been waiting for. Jenna and another colleague, Marcus, were heading to the break room on the 2nd floor. The kitchen isn't far from the main work area, but the coffee machine sits in a little alcove with a wall between it and the desks. It's the one place in the office where you can have a conversation without being overheard. I followed them at a distance. I didn't make a show of it. I just happened to be carrying my water bottle as I walked toward the same hall. I stopped just before the alcove's entrance and leaned against the wall. My phone was in my hand, screen facing down. I pressed the voice memo button and slid the phone into my breast pocket. Marcus was saying something about the new director position, how David had narrowed it down to 2 people. "Obviously, I know who it's going to be," Jenna said. Her voice had a different texture when she thought she was alone. Less warm. Sharper. "I've been handling Maya for 6 months. I heard the coffee machine beep. Her quarterly reviews have been fine on paper, but David sees what I show him. That's the trick." "What was her review?" Marcus asked. "Perfect." David told me himself, but perfect on paper doesn't mean anything when your name gets attached to the wrong narrative. I stood there for 11 seconds. I counted. And then I walked in, smiling, holding my water bottle. "Oh, hey," I said. "Anyone see the email about the potluck next week?" Jenna's face flickered, just for a moment. Then she smiled right back. "Not yet," she said. "You still bringing your famous pasta salad?" "Wouldn't miss it." I walked back to my desk and opened my voice memo app. The recording was clean. You could hear the coffee machine. You could hear Marcus's laugh, and you could hear her say, word for word, "I've been handling Maya for 6 months." I listened to it twice. The second time, I saved it to my personal cloud drive, the one I paid for with my own money and no one at Nexusoft had access to. Then I opened a new note and typed the date. Friday, March 8th. That weekend, I made a copy of everything. The folder of 43 emails. The email chain from the Miller Group client. The voice memo. I organized them by date, by incident, by name. I built a spreadsheet with 3 columns: what Jenna did, when she did it, and who saw it. By Sunday night, I had 19 pages of evidence, but I still didn't have a floor to stand on. Then Monday morning, March 11th, David called a team meeting. He was smiling. That was never a good sign. He said, "Retail Max is threatening to leave. 2 clients have pulled out already. It's a $2 million account. No one's touched it yet, but someone has to." The room went quiet. Everyone looked at their shoes. Retail Max was the hardest client in the company's entire portfolio. A major retail chain with a demanding contact, a history of billing disputes, and a sprawling account that had burned through 3 project managers in 2 years. "How about you, Maya?" David said. "You did well with the Miller Group." Beside me, Jenna was smiling. The inside of my cheek was bleeding from where I'd bitten it, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Sure," I said. "I'll take it." The conference room door clicked shut behind me, and Sarah was already on her feet. "You just volunteered for Retail Max," she said. "Are you insane?" Probably. 2 project managers quit that account. One of them actually cried in the parking lot. I heard. I grabbed my coffee cup and smiled. A real smile, the kind that had been in short supply lately. "Sarah, I've been carrying this company's hardest accounts for 8 years. Retail Max is just another one." She studied my face for a long moment. "This is about Jenna. It's about the director position and the fact that nobody gets promoted by playing it safe. That wasn't the whole truth, but it was close enough for a Tuesday morning. The first week on Retail Max was brutal. I won't pretend otherwise. Their contact, A woman named Denise had been burned by 3 project managers who promised results and delivered excuses. She wasn't interested in my presentations or my process maps. She wanted to know why she should trust me. I didn't have a good answer at first, so I stopped talking and started working. I reviewed every document Retail Max had ever submitted to us. Every invoice dispute, every canceled meeting, every missed deadline. I created color-coded timelines showing exactly where our account team had failed. Not to blame anyone, to understand the pattern. By the second week, I was sleeping 4 hours a night. My apartment looked like a war room. Whiteboards covered the kitchen table. Printed emails were taped to the walls. Route mapped from the initial contract through the last pullout. Denise had asked for 21 separate deliverables in the past year. We'd delivered 9 out of 21. That wasn't a client problem. That was an us problem. The plan came together on a Saturday morning. I was sitting on my living room floor at 6 a.m., surrounded by papers, and it just clicked. The whole thing. A phased reconstruction of the account structure. Client oversight into every project milestone. Weekly executive summaries. An escalation protocol that gave Denise direct access to the board if we fell behind. I called Sarah before anyone else. I need you to do something for me. She says, I need you to check if any of this violates our standard client service agreement. I heard her keyboard start clacking. Already pulling it up, Sarah caught 3 problems in the first hour. She caught 6 more by Sunday night. Together, we rebuilt the plan from nothing. Faster processes, clearer accountability, digital paper trails so dense that nobody could ever claim a request went unseen. On Monday, March 11th, I sent the plan to Mr. Harrison. I bypassed David completely. His name wasn't on the email. His approval wasn't in the chain. I'd made a strategic decision, and I'd made it carefully. If the plan failed, I took the fall alone. If it worked, the credit was mine alone too. Mr. Harrison's assistant called me 30 minutes later. He wants to see you at 3. I met him in his corner office. He was tall always, broader when he was thinking. He read the plan without looking up, and I watched his fingers trace the client oversight section twice. You went over Thompson's head, he said. Yes, sir. Why? Because Retail Max is a $2 million account. I couldn't afford to have my proposal filtered through 3 more approval layers while the client walked out the door. He studied me. Then he closed the folder. Bring this to the board tomorrow. The board meeting took 2 hours. They grilled me hard. How would we staff the new layers? What was the projected timeline? What happened when Retail Max asked for more because they always asked for more? I answered every question with the evidence. All 21 deliverables. The 9 that had shipped late. The projected account health trajectory with and without the plan. By the time the board voted, Denise had already signed the new agreement. Retail Max was locked in, not for a quarter, not for a season, for the full $2 million annual contract. Mr. Harrison shook my hand on the boardroom floor in front of all of them. Well done, Maya. David stood at the far end of the table, pale and silent. Jenna was in the hallway when I walked out. She had her conference smile on. Wow, Maya. I can't believe you pulled that off. Neither can I said. I kept walking. I'm not a fool. I knew what my success meant for her. I'd taken the impossible client and made it work without her help, without her fingerprints anywhere near it. And the director position was still open. I had given the board something they hadn't had in months. Proof that I was the one who carried this company. Jenna knew it too. I saw it in the way her jaw tightened when I passed. She was panicking. Her carefully crafted narrative about my mediocre performance was crumbling in real time, and she knew I'd exposed it professionally, cleanly, without ever mentioning her folder of stolen plans. I didn't gloat. I didn't threaten. I just made coffee in the break room and thanked the universe that I'd sent the plan to Mr. Bunn to Mr. Harrison instead of David. Something was coming. I could feel it. Jenna wasn't going to let me have this one. She was too ambitious, too desperate. She'd spent 6 months building her castle on the wreckage of my reputation. And now I was standing on top of the hardest client in the portfolio, holding proof she'd been lying the entire time. I just didn't know how far she'd go to stop me. The message came in at 9 morning on Wednesday morning. Sarah's name flashed on my screen, and the preview text made my coffee go cold. Check the shared drive, now. I opened it. My Retail Max folder was gone. The entire thing, every document, every timeline, every version of the turnaround plan I'd spent weeks building. In its place was a single file named Jenna's Retail Max Plan, Final. I stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds. Then I closed the laptop, stood up, and walked to the break room. I needed to see my face in the mirror. I needed to make sure I wasn't showing anything. Because I knew exactly who had done this. And I knew that if I reacted right now, in front of everyone, I'd give her exactly what she wanted. I poured a fresh cup of coffee and watched the cream swirl. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I'd expected shaking, maybe nausea, but there was only a cold, clear understanding. Jenna had panicked, and panicking people make mistakes. I walked back to my desk and opened my personal cloud drive. Every file was there. Every single one. I'd started backing things up the week I found that folder in her desk. Call it paranoia. Call it professional survival. Either way, I had everything. I replied to Sarah with 2 words. Bueno. She called me within 30 seconds. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. There's something else, she said. Tell me. Denise called the office this morning. Apparently someone from our team contacted her yesterday, claiming my work on the Retail Max plan was, quote, not original. My jaw tightened. I kept my voice level. Claiming what, exactly? That you'd presented a plan that didn't match what was internally approved. That there were concerns about its provenance. I closed my eyes. Provenance. That was a word Jenna had picked up in a leadership seminar last year. She'd used it in a meeting, and everyone had nodded like she was a genius. Did Denise believe it? I asked. Doesn't matter, Sarah said. She flagged it to David, and David is in a meeting with Mr. Past. Harrison, right now. I thanked Sarah, hung up, and sat very still in my chair. So this was the play. Delete my files, make it look like I had nothing. Then spread the rumor that I'd taken the plan from Jenna in the first place. Poison the client relationship. Poison the executive's opinion. Make the successful turnaround look like theft. It was bold. It was also stupid, because I had backups. And because Jenna had given me the gift of her own panic. She'd moved first. She'd shown her hand. And in 3 days, at the quarterly board meeting, I was going to show mine. The rest of Wednesday passed in a blur of careful small talk. I smiled at Jenna in the hallway. I praised a slide she'd put together in the team meeting. I offered her gum when we stood next to the printer. Normal, friendly, oblivious. That woman had no idea that I had her voice on my phone, that I had her emails in a folder, that I had time-stamped proof of every single piece of work she tried to claim as her own. Thursday morning, David called me into his corner office. He closed the door, which he never did unless something was serious. Maya, he said, using the tone he probably practiced in the mirror. There's been a concern raised about the Retail Max plan. Oh, I said, innocent, curious. 2 of my best performances. Jenna has indicated that some of the core strategy elements in your presentation were sourced from her private work documents. She said she doesn't want to make a formal complaint, but she felt you should know that she's aware. I let the silence stretch for 3 full seconds. Then, I tilted my head and looked at David with what I hoped read as bewildered concern. David, I have the full document history. Every version, every edit, every timestamp. I'd be happy to share it with anyone who has questions. He blinked. He hadn't expected that. He'd expected pushback, tears, or guilt. Instead, I'd handed him a perfectly reasonable, perfectly professional response. No need for that, he said quickly. It's just a formality. I'm sure it's a misunderstanding. Of course, I said. These things happen. I walked out of his office and felt the cold certainty settle in my chest. David wasn't going to run any investigation. He was going to let this slide, because confronting the truth would mean admitting he'd been the one who believed Jenna's lies in the first place. He'd protected himself. He'd made himself my enemy. And he had no idea what was coming. The board meeting was in 3 days. Jenna thought she'd won. She thought she'd deleted my work, poisoned my client, and buried my reputation. She had no idea what I had planned. The boardroom smelled like lemon furniture polish and stale coffee. The same smell as every quarterly meeting I'd sat through for 8 years. But this time, I wasn't just another face at the table. I was the one holding the folder. Jenna sat 2 seats down from me, her heels tapping the floor in a nervous rhythm she didn't know she had. She smiled at me like we were still best friends. Like she hadn't spent half a year sharpening a knife behind my back. Mr. Harrison opened the meeting with the acquisition update. 15 minutes about projections and timelines. I heard none of it. I was counting breaths. Mine, steady. Jenna's, fast. David's, somewhere between. Then came the agenda item I'd been waiting for. The Retail Max turnaround. David cleared his throat and started talking about the remarkable work Jenna had done. How she'd stepped in when the account was in crisis. How her plan had saved the relationship. Actually, I said, that's not quite right. The room went quiet. David's pen stopped moving. I'm sorry, he said. The plan Jenna submitted, I said. I created it back in January. Jenna laughed. A bright, brittle sound. Maya, I know you worked on some early drafts, but the final plan was. The final plan was identical to my draft, I said. Word for word, because you took it from my desk. The folder labeled Maya's Strategies in the drawer Jenna could access because we shared an office. Mr. Harrison set down his glasses. Maya, this is a serious accusation. I know, I said. That's why I brought proof. I pulled out the printed documents. 50 pages, clipped and tabbed. I walked to the projector and laid the first page under the camera. This is the original strategy document, I said. Created and saved on January 8th. I printed the timestamp from the file properties. This is Jenna's version, submitted on March 25th. The document markers show it was created from my file after my file name was altered. The board members leaned forward. I clicked to the next slide. I also pulled the email metadata, the critical client messages that went missing during my promotion review process. They show Jenna's address in the forwarding chain. She didn't forget to send them. She intercepted them. Jenna's face was going gray. This is absurd. I have no idea how those got into my drafts folder. I'm not finished, I said. I clicked again. The screen filled with a voice memo file. This is a recording from March 8th. It's Jenna and Marcus in the second-floor break room. She couldn't see me on the other side of the coffee alcove. I just held up my phone. I pressed play. Jenna's voice filled the room. Warm, effortless, exactly like the voice she'd used on me for 6 years. I've been handling Maya for months. She's so smart, but she never checks her own blind spots. She thinks we're friends. It's almost too easy. David has zero idea. I've got him convinced she's past her prime. The room was silent. Then David spoke. That's taken out of context. There's context, I said. 41 more emails from Jenna to you, David. Compliments wrapped in criticisms. An evaluation of me every single week, all negative, all sent after my actual performance reviews. I have those too, the ones you signed confirming perfect marks. A board member picked up one of the printed copies. Read it. Looked at David with something that wasn't friendly anymore. Then there's the deletion, I said. Wednesday, I found my Retail Max work removed. Replaced with a file called Jenna's Retail Max Plan Final. The shared drive records every change. I backed up copies. We can thank Jenna's urgency for the digital trail. Mr. Harrison looked at Jenna. Do you have anything to say? Jenna opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I panicked, she said. I just wanted to be considered. I didn't think it was that big a deal. Did you send criticizing emails about Maya for 6 months? Mr. Harrison asked. Jenna looked at her hands. Oh, man. When I asked to review her performance during the promotion process, he continued, Did you speak honestly? Silence. That's enough, Mr. Harrison said. Jenna, you're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you to HR for your severance. $150,000 in stock options. That's your new severance, he said. Consider it settlement for inaction. David, you're being demoted to senior project manager. We'll discuss your future after the acquisition. David looked like he'd swallowed glass, but he nodded. And that was that. Mr. Harrison turned to me. Maya, the position is yours, if you'll have it. I'll take it, I said. Thank you. Jenna was escorted out. She looked back at me, eyes full of something raw and ugly. I just smiled. I hope you find what you're looking for. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The door clicked shut behind her, and I swear I heard the heel of her shoe snap against the hallway floor. The Monday after the board meeting, I walked into a different office. Not the one I shared with Jenna, a corner office with windows and a door that actually closed. Sarah had already put a small plant on my desk. A snake plant. She said it was unkillable. I said it was the perfect metaphor for my career. My new title was Director of Client Success, $130,000 a year. Almost double what I made before, but it was never about the money. It was about the fact that I earned it, every line of it, every late night, every client I had to drag back from the edge. The acquisition news came first. In a town hall meeting, Mr. Harrison called for the whole company. Nexasoft was being bought by a privately held investment group out of Chicago, and the deal was set to close early next year. My stock options. I heard the number and had to ask HR to repeat it. $250,000. For 8 years of loyalty I almost lost to a lie. I remember sitting in my new office, staring at the number on my screen and feeling nothing. Not excitement, not relief. Just a strange, quiet certainty that things had landed exactly where they were supposed to. And that made me think about Jenna. I hadn't heard from her since the boardroom. She left the building with a cardboard box and a security guard. Her severance, $15,000 and some stock options, was wired to her account. Mr. Harrison made sure of it, said it was the right thing to do. I didn't argue, but after the promotion was official, I found myself wondering what happens to someone like Jenna. She was talented. She was charming. She knew how to work a room like she wrote the script. And now her name was mud in every office within 100 miles. I didn't plan what happened next. It just happened the way these things do. Linda Alvarez had been a recruiter in Austin for 15 years. She placed my first junior role a decade ago. We'd stayed in touch, grabbing coffee every few months, trading stories about the industry. She called me 2 weeks after the office announcement. "Congrats on the director title," she said. "I heard you had a hell of a quarter." "Ooh, something like that." "You also heard Jenna Miller is looking?" I paused. "Jenna is looking? For what?" "For anything. She's been sending resumes to every tech firm in town. 2 of my clients asked about her. She's got great references." Or she did. I could have kept quiet. I could have said I didn't know anything and let her fight for whatever job she could find on her own. But I saw the folder in my mind, 43 pages of criticism. Emails David never should have believed. A plan I built that she tried to brand as her own. "Linda," I said, "can I tell you something strictly between us?" "Always." I told her the story, not the angry version. The true one. The facts, the timeline, the evidence. By the end of the call, Linda was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Thank you for telling me. You just saved me a very expensive mistake." That was it. I didn't ask her to blacklist Jenna. I didn't have to. The truth was enough. And the truth spread through the recruiter community the way water spreads through sand. Quietly, completely, in every direction at once. I learned later from Sarah, who learned it from a friend at another agency. Jenna applied to 11 different tech companies in Austin. She got 3 callbacks. She made it to a final round once at a data analytics firm near the Domain. She was even excited about it, thought she'd turned a corner. Then the hiring manager called Linda for a reference check. The role disappeared 48 hours later. No explanation, just a form email that said the company had decided to move in another direction. Jenna tried. She really did. I give her that. For 6 weeks after the board meeting, she sent resumes. She called in favors. She even reached out to a former client who vouched for her, bless his heart, because he never saw the meeting notes or the voice memo. But every lead evaporated, every door closed softly. No drama, no confrontation, just silence and meetings that never got scheduled. By May, Jenna Miller stopped showing up in the industry feeds. Her LinkedIn went quiet, then her profile just disappeared. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just drank my coffee in my corner office with the door closed and felt the weight of something heavy lift off my chest. She chose her path. I just made sure the truth followed her down it. Then the acquisition closed on Friday, January 10th. A handshake in a glass conference room in Chicago. My stock options converted to cash, and I stared at my online banking app like it was glitching. $250,000. Real. Mine. Earned. I didn't know then that this was setting up the strangest moment of my life. The one that would happen 2 months later on a Saturday afternoon at a coffee shop off South Congress after I'd just finished a mentoring session with a group of first-year analysts. But that, as they say, is where the story really ends. The truth about that Saturday was that I almost didn't go to the coffee shop at all. It was March 14th, a little over a year since I'd found that folder in Jenna's desk. I'd spent the morning with first-year analysts, talking about client strategy and how to read a room. Sarah had called it a mentoring session. I called it therapy, but with better coffee afterward. I ordered a flat white and found a seat by the window. The place was called Little Fern, and it had the kind of exposed brick that made you feel like you were in a movie. I was checking my email when the door opened, and the bell chimed, and she walked in. Jenna. She looked different, not older exactly, but heavier somehow. Like she was carrying something she couldn't put down. Her hair was shorter, her clothes were simpler. She wore a green apron over a white shirt, and she was carrying a tray of pastries toward the display case. I didn't move. I just watched her work for a moment, the way she stacked the croissants, the way she wiped her hands on her apron. She looked comfortable, tired, but comfortable. Then she looked up. Our eyes met, and I saw her freeze. Just for a second. Then she set down the tray, said something to the barista behind the counter, and walked toward me. She stopped at my table and stood there, twisting the edge of her apron. "Maya," she said, "I was hoping I'd run into you." And also dreading it. I didn't say anything. I waited. She took a breath. "I owe you an apology, a real one, not the kind you give because someone told you to." She paused and her voice got quieter. I was so scared of being passed over that I became someone I didn't recognize. I told myself you'd bounce back, that you'd never even know. But I knew, every single day, I knew. I nodded slowly. The flat white was getting cold in my hands. "I lost everything," she said. "The job, the friends, the city, and I deserved all of it." She looked at me then, really looked. "You were a good friend, the best I ever had, and I threw it away for a title that doesn't even matter anymore." I took a sip of my coffee, then I set it down. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Jenna." Her eyes widened slightly. She opened her mouth, closed it, and nodded. Then she turned and walked back toward the counter. And that was it. I sat there for another 10 minutes, watching the rain start to fall outside. I thought about the day I found that folder, the way my hands had shaken, the 43 emails, the voice memo, the boardroom that smelled like lemon polish. I thought about how much I'd carried, the anger, the betrayal, the nights I'd spent building a case instead of sleeping. But here's the thing. I didn't feel any of it anymore. The anger was gone. The betrayal had faded into something I could hold without it burning me. All that was left was the work I'd done, the company I'd built, the corner office with the door that closed, and the quiet, steady satisfaction of knowing that I'd won by staying exactly who I was. I finished my coffee. I left a $5 tip for the girl behind the counter. And I walked out into the Austin rain, feeling lighter than I had in years. Some people think revenge is about destruction. They're wrong. The best revenge is never looking back. It's waking up every morning knowing you did it right, that you never once stooped to their level, and that their name became a cautionary tale while yours became a signature on a door. I was 35 years old. I was successful. I was free, and that was enough. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.